Hi everyone, welcome to the latest Field Forum. So my name is Leanne, and today I'm going to be answering some questions on group play. So that's threesomes, foursomes, moresomes, orgies, and yeah, anything that involves three or more people in a fun, sexy time. So my name's Leanne Yau. I run a page called Polyphilia. So that's a polyamory education page where I talk about all things non-monogamy, sex positivity, and queer relationships. You can find me on Instagram mostly, but also other platforms. So I'll be answering questions for the next hour, and then after that, I'll also be in a group chat on Field, where we're going to continue the discussion. So if there are any questions on this live stream that I don't answer, you can ask me those questions in the group chat. And if you want to join the group chat, then you have to sign up to Field and then just join the link that should be coming up in the comments right now. I'll be doing this live stream, but I've also got two more coming up. The next one, save the date, is on September 7th at the same time, and the next one's going to be about kind of a poly dating as a single person. So if you are rocking it solo in the world of non-monogamy and you're looking to get some more help about that, then I suggest you join me on September 7th for that live stream and ask me some questions there. But for today we're talking about group play. So I thought just before I start getting to the questions, that I would just kind of talk about my last group sex experience and just kind of tell you a bit more about that to kick things off. And in that time, please think of some questions and put them in the comments, because this live stream won't work if you don't ask me questions. My last group sex experience was actually last week. So it was a threesome that I had with two friends with benefits that I've been seeing for a while. One of them I've been seeing for about 2 years, and the other one I've been seeing for about 2 or 3 months. And they had also kind of met up one-on-one and got on really well. So basically, at some point, we were like, hey, it would be a really great idea if the three of us got together and see how we vibe as a three, because I vibe with you, and you vibe with each other. So, we'll see how this works out. And it was a really great sensual time. I have a red lamp in my home, in my room, and I always put it on when I want to kind of set the mood. And we had a lovely time kind of touching each other. It was like a really kind of sensual experience. At some point, kind of we got out some massage oils and massaging each other as well. It was really great. So that was last week, and I'm hoping that there'll be kind of more experiences like that in the future. And as for kind of things I've got planned, I actually am organizing like a little orgy just with my friends later this month. So that's kind of something that I like to do as well, like get my friends together, have a nice sexy time. Like that'll be happening at the end of this month. And I also had one like for my birthday a couple months back. So I've been doing group play for, let me think, 7 years now, pretty consistently. I've always liked kind of like, being connected to multiple people and then seeing who would match with whom and all getting together in groups and seeing how we vibe. Because, one-on-one sex is really great, but sometimes you want to watch other people, or you want to be spoiled by two or more different people, or you and someone else want to tag team someone else and spoil them. Kind of depending on what you're into and what you want to get into group play for, you can have like a very wide variety of really wonderful sensual experiences. That's kind of largely an overview of my experiences recently, and like what I really enjoy about it. Okay, I'm just looking in the group chat. A lot of people are posting kind of where they're watching this from. See a lot of people from America, and amazing. Thank you so much for joining. Please ask your questions about threesomes, foursomes, and whatever you like. Whether you're dating as a single person, or you're a couple looking to date other singles or other couples, or if you want to organize something even bigger than that. So okay, we've got our first questions. Amazing. So I'm gonna answer Andres Castillo. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Your question is, how does one plan group play when you are doing it for the first time? So I think there's a couple of things to consider if you are looking to get into group play, which is yeah, kind of what motivates you to get into group play? Like, what do you find attractive about it? Like, when you think about, your ultimate kind of like fantasy when it comes to group play, what do you think about? Like, do you perceive yourself as someone who likes to watch? Do you like to be watched? Do you want to, have like the attention kind of mostly focused on you, or do you want to focus on other people, or a blend of all the above, right? Kind of what calls to you, right? Because if you have a very specific vision of what you want after your group play, then you have to find people who are compatible with that vision. I think the main mistake that people make when they try out group play is they're not on the same page about what they're looking for. So, for example, if two people both want, like everyone in a group situation, they want the focus all put on themselves, then that's not going to work out, because like someone's going to do the actions, right? So yeah, like I think the first thing to think about is kind of what you're doing it for, and kind of what do you have in mind, right? It's like for like a group experience. I think it's also about, yeah, for then finding people who are compatible with that, right? And making sure that like everyone vibes with each other. I think that it's, if you're operating in kind of small groups of like between, like, I would say kind of 3 to 6 people, it's really important that everyone gets along, because it's quite an intimate space to share. And you really want to make sure that like everyone gets along, and even if not everyone is necessarily attracted to each other, it's really important that, yeah, like they're on the same page and they're able to work together, and pleasure other people. So having a really good rapport with the people that you're doing it with is going to be really important. So, with my most recent experience, what worked really well was the fact that I knew that not only did I get on with each of the people involved, but they also got along, with each other without me. Now, that doesn't necessarily need to be the case, right? There are lots of people, for example, couples who go on a date with a single person and the three of them vibe on the date, and there isn't kind of a need to like spend time kind of one-on-one without each other in order to see how it works. But I do think it sometimes helps, because one-on-one you get to establish your own kind of separate dynamic and figure out kind of what you like when you're in that intimate space together, and then when you bring that to a group, you can explore what that looks like together. So that's kind of my take on it. What else would you want to think about with group play? Yeah, like I think just kind of figuring out your motivations and kind of talking to other people about like what you want, and making sure that, yeah, like you have the same vision before getting into it. If you're very flexible and they're also flexible, then you can have these conversations and check in as you go along. And yeah, definitely kind of having a space where you can kind of be yourselves and take your time and not put too much pressure on it, is a really good idea. So okay, let's get to some other questions. Mm, okay, Colin Murphy asked, how would you suggest a cis male find communities or other people looking for group play locally? So thank you for this question, Colin. So I would say, if I assume when you say like when you ask this question, you are like a single cis male. So I'm going to ask it from that kind of perspective. Um, I think it really depends on where you live. Like I think you're more likely to find these communities in cities, or kind of just places where like yeah, there's just a lot of people, high population density. And from there, like if you're in big cities like New York, London, for instance, there might be kind of commercial parties being run. So I'm in the UK, and in London there are like various parties like Joyride or Quench or Club Forgotten or whatever, like where people meet up and socialize and get together for group play. There are rooms where you can do that, and there are rooms where you just kind of go and have a dance. And so yeah, there are commercial events. If you're in a big city, there might be kind of some private parties being run by people in various forums like FetLife. And yeah, and other than that, if you don't have access to either of those things, then it's just about like going on field, saying what you're looking for, and just kind of finding your people. And so, it might take some time. Like when I started out, I was mainly, for a period of time, I was dating couples, and that was the most easy way to just find threesomes and stuff like that. But when it came to kind of larger gatherings, I had to do the work of, yeah, like kind of matching with multiple people, and then kind of, organizing kind of like threesomes, or, just introducing people to each other and seeing how they get on without me. And then from there, building a wider network where I was like, okay, let's all get together, maybe a group of like 10 people at this time. And yeah, like kind of play some games and see where we go from there. So, like I think the most important thing is that it feels kind of organic if you're doing it privately, and if you're participating in kind of someone else's gathering, like obviously like there's like the rules around consent are much more heightened in these spaces, because yeah, like you can't make any assumptions about what other people are into or whether they're attracted to you, and you need to be like very like very on it, with like asking to touch people, and like not making assumptions about like what people are into, and just having those conversations as soon as possible. But yeah, like I think kind of the main communities, like yeah, just like if you can look for communities in your nearest city, or if you are in a city, then find one there. Look online, and talk to people on field. If you match with them, you see what they know, and yeah, maybe make some friends to go to an event together. I've made so many people through field that I go to events with regularly now. And that's been a really valuable experience for me, because field isn't just a place where I find my partners, but it's also been a place where I find local community. So that's been a really fun time for me. So yeah, I hope that helps, Colin. So okay. um okay, Tori Kuykendall, sorry if I mispronounced that, asks, I think this is like a two-part question actually. Curious how we should handle having HPV in sex party situations. Testing was required, but of course there's no test for HPV. And also a follow-up saying, is the idea that people in this sex-positive lifestyle assume that anyone with HPV will just not play if they have an outbreak? So I'm not a doctor, so I'll kind of preface that. And like I don't know like as much about like HPV specifically, but I can speak generally about STIs and kind of how that pertains to group play, because I think that will probably be relevant to more of you as well. So I'm going to talk about STIs more generally and what you can take which applies to HPV, then I hope you find that helpful. So yeah, like I mean, there are lots of different STIs. Like some of them, that they're curable through like antibiotics. Some of them you need kind of some treatment to like suppress the virus. And some of them, like they're kind of dormant in your body for like a long period of time, and they're like the chances of that being passed on are very low unless you have an outbreak. So like I think kind of my personal experience with that is HSV, which is also known as herpes, also known as just cold sores. So cold sores are extremely common. Similar to HPV, most people have HSV. Most people have gotten cold sores at least kind of at some point in their life. And I think like the WHO reported that like 67% of people have at least one of the two strains of herpes. So that's like it's most of the population. And I think like how people handle that is like, yeah, if you have an active outbreak, then warn people. And some people don't care, especially if they also get cold sores. If you have an active outbreak, then they're like, cool, I have the virus, that's fine. And some people like, oh, I don't want to get an outbreak, I don't know my status, so then like let's not. And there are also medications that you can take to like suppress the spread of it. Acyclovir is a very common one, for example. Yeah, and then other than that, it's just like talking to people about what their level of risk tolerance is, because like some people, they like to use like a lot of protection, whether it's condoms or dental dams or gloves, right? And different people have like different preferences regarding that. And I guess it's just about balancing, like, what level of risk are you happy to expose yourself to while still, like, having a good time. So yeah, like, I think if that's kind of something that you're worried about, then, have these conversations up front with people. And if someone doesn't know their status, or hasn't been tested in a while, then it's up to you whether whether or not to play with them, right? Like, you get to decide that. And there's no shame in kind of whatever level of tolerance it is. It's just like, if two people have different views in it, then you're incompatible, but it doesn't mean that either of you are wrong. So yeah, like, some people, they just decide that they're going to take a risk. Some people are like, yeah, as long as we use condoms and we've had a conversation about testing, then it's fine. Different people look for different things, right? So I think, and with things that there's no, like, tests for, then yeah, like, I think you just have to rely on, like, active outbreaks. And at the end of the day, there's no such thing as fully safe sex. Like, unless you kind of cover yourself in cling film from head to toe, there are lots of conditions that can be passed through saliva or just skin to skin contact, right? Like, even with condoms, they can't necessarily be prevented. So yeah, like, it is, in the same way that whenever you drive a car, you run the risk of potentially getting into a car crash. Every time you have sex, you potentially run the risk of getting an STI. It's just kind of part of it. And of course, there are many things that you can do to keep yourself safer and kind of prevent things from happening. But it's also really important to have a game plan for if you do catch something, because the likelihood of that happening is actually quite high. So yeah, I hope that helps, Tori, and I hope that helps anyone else who's watching, with kind of STI and testing generally. Different people have different preferences. If it's important to you, bring it up. And if people are going to judge you for that, they're probably not going to be the person that you want to play with anyway. So it's okay to, yeah, like, have your own kind of preferences. And the whole point of non-monogamy is that there's no kind of wrong or right way to do it necessarily. The whole point is that you make up your own rules, and as you go along, and make sure to be considerate to other people, and be kind to people in the meantime. Okay, so next question. Let's see. Okay, someone asks, this person's called Yauza. What is the best way to approach and introduce yourself at a play party if you find a person you're attracted to? What's the process? What to do and what not to do? Great question, Yauza. So I think, like, if you find a person, like, in a group play situation, firstly, if you're at a sex party, I think, like, it's different from, like, a regular party where, if you socialize at a regular party, there isn't necessarily the expectation that things are going to escalate from there. But then I think, like, in a kind of sex party situation, people are there to get with each other. So I feel like the rules are, like, slightly different, in that if you speak to someone for an extended period of time, that's usually because you've indicated some level of interest in them, right? So like, if you've been kind of talking to someone for a period of time, you like their vibe, you feel like there's that something might happen, then it's okay to just be direct, like, because yeah, like, you can be like, hey, like, I find you really attractive. I really like XYZ about you. I was wondering, what are you looking for tonight? Or even you could just ask them, what are you looking for tonight? If you don't necessarily want to just jump in with the, hey, like, I'm really into you. And just kind of, like, tease it in from there. I mean, that's kind of how I would approach it. Like, I'm not really a person who kind of likes to beat around the bush. I don't really like kind of sussing things out and taking, like, way too long with that stuff, because sometimes things can be misread. And the last thing you want in like a group situation like that is for things to be misinterpreted, or to misinterpret someone else. So, I do think that being direct with someone, even if it feels really unnatural or embarrassing or vulnerable to do, will probably get you the results that you want. Because like, as long as you're not being, like, super aggressive or expecting them to give you a certain answer, just saying, like, hey, just putting this out there, if you're interested, and giving them the option to say yes or no, that's fine. And if they say no, then move on. That's okay. You found out this thing about each other, and yeah, that's fine. And if they say yes, then great. Go ahead and see where that goes. So as for like introducing yourself, like I think it's, typically like these parties, like sometimes there's like opportunities for like icebreakers, particularly at more kind of private gatherings. People will just be like, yeah, like they'll go around in a circle and say their name or like what they want to do tonight or something. At kind of larger events, there's typically like a space where people can socialize, like the smoking area or terrace or something like that. And you just go, you know, find people, to go up to them and be like, hey, I'm new here, or like, oh, like, are you here, is this your first time here, did you come here alone or with friends, and start to strike up a conversation from there, and see where it goes. As long as you're not pressuring anyone to give you a particular answer, and you're not being like, like overly aggressive, crowding them or something like that. There's nothing wrong with being direct and just indicating interest and letting them make a decision. So yeah, I would say in terms of like what to do, I would say be direct, but like not in a rude way. And give people freedom to say no, right? Because it's not like an enthusiastic yes if they don't have the option to say no. And show like, yeah, just be genuine, just show genuine interest in people, and like have like make sure you have a good rapport. Yeah, I mean, what not to do, don't make assumptions, don't be like, yeah, don't make assumptions about what they're into or whether they're into you. um yeah, just be a decent person, I guess. I don't know if that's helpful. But yeah, like I think like the nice thing about these sex positive spaces and kind of group play spaces is that, like, yeah, people know what they're there for. So I think people are likely to be much more honest about what they're looking for, rather than trying to beat around the bush or kind of be coy about it. At least that's kind of been my experience. um Okay. So related to that, actually, someone's just asked a question. Aaron Cass has just asked, how do you say no without harming others? So, so this is an interesting one, because, I don't think that saying no, is inherently harmful. Sure, it might hurt someone's feelings if, they feel rejected, but that's not the same thing as harming someone. I think harming someone would be, yeah, like, just saying, like, saying something to like hurt someone like on purpose, which is not the same thing as just being honest about where you're at. And yeah, like, because the worst thing to do would be to say yes when you don't actually mean a yes, and then having them find out later on that you weren't that interested in them. I feel like that would be more harmful than just saying no in the first place, and just being like, hey, you're lovely, but like, I don't see us that way, and I hope you have a good rest of your night. So, I don't think that saying no is a bad thing. I think that saying no is speaking your truth. And again, being direct, even if it feels difficult and vulnerable in the moment, is going to get you kind of better results in the long term, because it means that both of you can now spend your time with people who you actually want to say yes to. And saying no early on, if that's how you feel, is a kindness to them in the long run. So I hope that helps, Aaron. I don't think saying no is a bad or harmful thing, if that is kind of how you truthfully feel. And people, in these spaces deserve the truth, and you deserve to have consensual experiences. Um, yeah, let's look at some more questions. Just by the way, we're almost at the halfway mark now, and just wanted to remind everyone that I will be doing this live stream for another half hour or so. And then I will be joining the group chat where we can continue the discussion about group play, and you can all connect with each other as well. So if you're interested in doing that and continuing the discussion after this live stream, then Field have just put the group chat link in the description. So please sign up to Field if you haven't already, and you can join the group chat there and ask me some more questions and talk to some other people. So yeah, just a friendly reminder as well that I will be doing more of these live streams. My next one is on September 7th. That one will be specifically on a poly dating as a single person. I've also done a number of live streams in the past if you check out Field's YouTube channel. So if you like what I've said here so far and you want to see more of me, then you can check out the channel and find more videos there. And of course, you can find me on Instagram. But yeah, if you want more of these Q&As, then keep tabs on the Field Experiences site. And I hope to see you at future events as well. Okay, more questions. um, let's see. Do, 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 do. Um, so someone called 247MS1 has asked, are there parties that cater for group play but aren't kink specific? We're new to the scene and working out which to look up is harder than we expected. Thanks. Yeah, great question. So I think for the commercially, I assume you're talking about kind of commercially run sex parties. So yeah, like I think that at least in my experience of the ones that I've been to in London, yeah, different parties have different focuses and different vibes. So, I would say like an event like Torture Garden or Club Verboten is very kink specific. And yeah, like, people go there, all dressed up in kind of like more like very heavy kind of kinky gear. And yeah, like, there's like, yeah, there's a kind of kinky experience and that being the focus. And there are obviously like other parties as well that aren't so kink specific, but kink does happen at those events. So my experiences at like Joyride or Quench, for instance, they cater more towards like queer people, not necessarily kinky people, but obviously the two groups like overlap quite a lot. And yeah, so kind of like queer sex positive spaces where kink can happen, but is not the main focus. It's more about kind of cultivating queer community. And if some fun, sexy play or fun, kinky play happens as a result of that, then great. So yeah, like, I mean, I can only speak to the ones that I've attended in London. But if you want to find out more about, yeah, kind of the parties that you're looking up, then I would suggest, talking to people on field and asking them, hey, have you been to this party or that party? How do your experiences compare at either of those? Or you could just ask the organizers and be like, hey, kind of what kind of target audience, do your parties cater to, right? And yeah, they'll usually be quite upfront. Like, for example, like, oh, well, we prioritize people of color, or we prioritize queer people, or we prioritize anyone who's into like this particular kink, right? There are even kink events that cater towards like a specific type of kink. Like there's one in my city that caters towards puppy play, for instance. So it's really important to do your research. And if you are a person who likes group play but not necessarily kink play, then yeah, like that's something that's good to clarify. So yeah, ask around, whether it's the organizers or just people on field, or just people in your community, and try and find out more information about that. Because yeah, like you want to have a good time and you want to be fully informed about what you're getting yourself into. And usually these parties will have a good guideline of like what to wear to these events as well. And I think like oftentimes by looking at the dress code, you can get an idea of the kind of people who attend and like what types of things they might be into. So looking at like the dress code is also a good indication of kind of what type of event it is. Yeah, hope that helps. Okay, let's see. Do 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 do. Um, hmm. I'm looking. Okay, so yeah, someone's asking like play parties in Scotland, but I unfortunately have never been to Scotland. I would like to go, but I don't know much about that, unfortunately. But I hope you found my answer earlier around just yeah, looking online for communities or like Fat Life and things like that helpful. Okay. Do 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 do. Oh, okay. Reggie Monroe asks, I have been really interested in group play, but I'm nervous about meeting people online. Do you have any suggestions? So, I mean, that's what Field is for, right? Like, meeting and matching with people online and, seeing kind of what goes from there. I would really encourage you to think about like what makes you so nervous about meeting people online. Like, is it like a privacy concern? Is it the vulnerability of putting yourself out there? Is it you're worried about kind of potentially having a negative experience, right? Like, I really encourage you to like ask yourself kind of where that anxiety is coming from, and perhaps kind of challenging whatever kind of beliefs have been holding you back around meeting people online, and just kind of taking that step and putting yourself out there. Because ultimately, like, I think Field is a really great community for meeting kinky people, non-monogamous people, queer people, whatever, just open-minded, curious, adventurous people. And people are typically kind of open to just yeah, like a variety of different experiences. And if you want to learn more about the space, you kind of have to immerse yourself in it. Yeah, so if your anxiety is based in just kind of not knowing that much, then do your research, right? Like, you're here listening to this live stream, which is great, and there's also lots of resources out there around group play that you can check out and learn more about. So you can kind of think about what your fantasies are and what you'd like to participate in, and go out there and put it in your profile, what you're looking for. Just more generally, this is just more just general like dating profile advice, since we're doing this for field. I think there can be a temptation to to cast a wide net when it comes to like just finding matches and things like that. But I think the more specific you are around your desires, the more interesting you'll appear to other people, and the more likely you will be to actually find a good match, right? Because if you just put a very general profile, or like one photo or whatever, and you don't really fill in like your desires and interests, people are not going to know that much about you. You're going to be a bit of a mystery. Your profile's not going to stand out as much. So the more specific you can be about what you're looking for, and the more in tune you are with your own desires and your interests, and the more you can advertise those in your profile, the more likely people are going to swipe right on you. I think the field, whoever's like monitoring kind of the field live stream right now, can back me up on this, but I seem to recall that people who put at least 2 interests and 2 desires in their field profile are 75% more likely to get a match. I think that was the statistic that I read. So yeah, I definitely encourage you to fill out your profile in as much detail as possible. You have 1,500 characters, which is a lot, so much more than other dating apps. And that's for you to be very specific about what you're looking for. So don't feel shy. Be specific about what you're looking for and put yourself out there. And I wish you the best of luck with finding your people, because you can only do that if you are actually kind of being like, you're very vocal about your desires. So yeah, I hope that helps. Okay. Let's see. What questions have I not answered here? Do 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 do. Mhm. Mm. I'm just gonna answer like this one by Bleepmaster23, which is like, are there any swinging discords or subreddits that you do recommend? And what's the craziest or funniest thing you've seen or done? So I can't really answer the first question because I'm not really on Discord and I don't really use Reddit that much. But like they are out there. And again, I'd encourage you to just talk to people on field, see what they know, and find community like through that platform. But yeah, like honestly, if you just do a quick Google online, like there's like plenty of forums, or like that you can look into. But I'm more interested in your second question, which is like, what's the craziest or funniest thing that you've seen or done? So let's see. I don't know about funny. And I think like crazy is going to be like individual perspective, right? Because like I think for a lot of people, just being non-monogamous and queer is crazy in itself. But I guess I'm gonna go with something just memorable, which is like a couple months back. It was my birthday, and I had a birthday orgy, and it was a really really great time. And it was like at my home, and it was about 12 people. And it was a really great time because most of the people there were into each other, and we just kind of piled into my room and had an excellent time. I think a really kind of memorable and perhaps kind of funny to some people experience was like someone was pleasuring me, and at the same time someone else was feeding me a strawberry. So that was really funny because I wasn't expecting it. I was just having a good time with someone, and then the other person came into the room and they were like, "Hey, I have a bunch of strawberries. Does anyone want some?" And everyone in the room was like, "Oh my god, yes!" So they started feeding everyone strawberries, and that was a really funny moment. And it was also like a really lovely experience because yeah, like I was experiencing two entirely different types of pleasure at once. And strawberries are very much like an aphrodisiac kind of fruit. Yeah, I wouldn't say that's like the craziest thing I've ever done, but that's kind of one thing that kind of pops into mind from kind of my group play experiences more recently. And In terms of funny, I mean, there have been kind of plenty of instances where someone like falls out of bed, or like just kind of does something too enthusiastically and doesn't go the way they planned, and it's funny. But the whole point of yeah, like I think sex for me is less about like performance, and it's more about just having like a good time, and just, yeah, like enjoying the connection and enjoying pleasure. And it doesn't necessarily need to be like really passionate the whole time, as long as you're having fun and exploring each other. So yeah, there have been plenty of funny things that have happened over the course of just me being sexually active and having these kind of group experiences. But it's okay, it doesn't detract from it. I think that like people often have this perception of group play as being something that like you have to like just go at for like hours and hours, and you have to have an erection at all times, or you have to do this and that. And it's not that. It ebbs and flows. People like tag in and tag out. Like the nice thing about group play is that if you're tired, it's fine, because even if you're not doing anything, other people can keep doing stuff, and it still kind of continues. So there's a lot more kind of fluidity in that. And sometimes if you get tired because it can get quite intense, you're in the middle and you're just like having a sensual time, massaging each other, having a chat, and then kind of maybe getting back to it. Like it doesn't have to look like anything in particular that you've seen anywhere else. Like you can just enjoy what feels good to you, and check in with your partners and see how they're feeling, and see what things you can do together. But yeah, like honestly, yeah, like I think that's kind of what comes to mind. But like I wouldn't say I have a story right now for like the craziest thing or the funniest thing I've ever done. Yeah. Yeah, please ask me more questions, guys. I'm gonna talk a little bit actually about kind of just planning parties in general. And I'm talking kind of like about private parties if you're planning on doing one of your own, because I think that's a question that I get quite a lot, on my page, which is like, yeah, kind of picking like who to go with and kind of stuff like that. If you're organizing a private party, like I generally want to keep it small, so I would kind of keep it to my friends. If I had a slightly bigger space, then I might be like, okay, friends, and everyone can bring someone that they can vouch for. So I personally really like the buddy system, where, yeah, like someone always has like everyone who's at the party has like a buddy who vouches for them, and if one of them behaves badly, then both of them are responsible. It just kind of helps people be accountable for each other, and kind of helps vet the space and keep it a bit more safe, which is important, especially in a very intimate space. I in terms of what to do beforehand, like I think like having some kind of snacks and drinks like are really nice. Nothing that's kind of too crumbly or flaky. So I wouldn't recommend things like Doritos, for instance, which would like, like it kind of gets on your hands and that might get in the way if you're trying to play later on. Things like grapes, or maybe I don't know, like nuts and things like that, like things that like won't stay in your hands or get on your hands, because yeah, just hygiene. Of course, you still have to wash your hands and stuff like that, but I just mean generally, if it's like sticky and stuff like that, that's probably not going to be great for like a group play setting. um, and Yeah, like talking, like sometimes some people like to have a group chat beforehand, so people can just get to know each other and like see if they strike up a vibe before they go into the space. Depends kind of what you're looking for, like, because some people like go there and are able to get into it immediately. Some people want to go there, socialize, and see how things go. So yeah, it really depends kind of how you want to plan your night, and or afternoon. It doesn't have to happen in the night. um, yeah, like, and definitely like a little kind of having a space like at the start kind of talk through the rules of the space, I think is really important, especially if you have a lot of people who are new to it. So kind of setting some consent ground rules down, or maybe having a universal safe word. So if the word is said, then whoever's playing with that person has to stop everything that they're doing, or just establishing a universal safe word will inspire people to use safe words in general, even if it isn't the safe word that you've set. So just starting those conversations around consent and keeping the space like as safe as possible, right? Is it would be kind of my main priority, like when I'm kind of setting up a space. So yeah. Oh, I just kind of saw how like Reggie just replied. His concern is worried about being vulnerable, and he said he will update his profile on Feel. Yeah, good luck to you, Reggie. I hope things go well. Yeah, like I think kind of it is vulnerable to put yourself out there, and a lot of people do get self-conscious writing up a profile and being like, is this how I want to come across? How do I advertise myself to other people in that way? Like it does require a shift in mindset. And I think if you're not used to kind of using dating apps, like it is a bit of a shift. But like I think just putting like your interests and what you're looking for is really like the best way to go. And in terms of photos, put up something of like put up photos that represent yourself. I like to see photos of people with some of their on their own, some of them with friends or partners, and in particular photos that show an aspect of their personality. Like for example, if someone is rock climbing, then I know that they're into rock climbing. If someone is there's a photo of them on stage playing guitar, then I know that they're a musician. So like if you have photos of yourself like doing something or like being in your element, that'll be I think I find that really attractive anyway. So yeah, that's not so much about related to group play, that's just about like setting up profiles generally. But I hope that's useful, because like you're on here to have like a sexy time, but you also want to get to know people and connect as individuals, right? Because having that rapport is just going to make the sex that much better, in my opinion. Okay, so we've got roughly 20 minutes left. So yeah, just once again, this live stream doesn't work if you don't ask questions. So please ask me whatever question you've got in your mind. This is your sign. Just put your question in the comments. Anything related to group play, threesomes, foursomes, moresomes, orgies, whatever it is. And once again, if you joined this halfway through, I will be in the group chat after this on Field, continuing the conversation. So if you have any questions that that I didn't get to hear, you can ask me there. Yep, thank you. So the group chat link is now in the comments. So if you haven't done so yet, please join the group chat. Yeah, we can keep talking there. So I'll be doing that for an hour after this. So yeah, this live stream is an hour long, and then after that, I'll be in the group chat for another hour, and hopefully you guys can kind of connect with each other as well. Great, we've got some more questions. Thank you so much. So AC asks, have you experienced playmates or couples behaving differently after being with them? Yes and no. Like I think it really depends, right? Because sometimes something might seem really good on paper, and then everything's kind of building up to it, and then you have the experience and it doesn't turn out quite as you liked. So then yeah, maybe you behave a little bit differently afterwards because maybe the passion wasn't there or the interest wasn't there, and you're like, okay, where are we now? So like, sure, there have been other instances where people have behaved differently because it went so well, right? Like I've definitely had kind of group experiences with people that I didn't expect to have such a good time with. And when it happened, I was like, oh wow, now I want to spend way more time with this person. I want to explore like this thing or that thing, and maybe like try it with this other person, right? So yeah, like I think this is quite a broad question. Yeah, but I think when you're asking about behaving differently, I'm assuming you mean kind of like negatively. And sure, like I think it can be really hard if, yeah, like you go into an experience with someone, you've had like a vulnerable and intimate experience with them, and then afterwards I don't know, they ghost you or something. That can be really hard. And I think like dealing with rejection is something that's really important to learn if you're on dating apps in general, or just through life, right? And I think the most important thing to remember is it's not always going to be about you necessarily. Like I think of course like examine your behavior, see like whether there was anything that you did wrong or could have done better in that situation. But sometimes people are just incompatible, and it doesn't mean that anyone is in the wrong. So okay. Oh wow, suddenly like a huge burst of questions. Okay. Oh, Aaron Gonzalez asked a really good question. How do you navigate situations when things get a little weird or difficult during group play? Great question, Aaron. Thank you for asking this. Yeah, I think like I said earlier, there's a pressure that people experience in a group situation for everything to be like super passionate, and you're really going at it and stuff. Like because of what you see in porn, for instance. Like there's like a very specific portrayal of group sex, like in porn, but porn is not real life. It's entertainment, but there's the education in that realm only goes so far. So yeah, like things come up unexpectedly, and even if you've had the conversations beforehand, you know what you want going into it. You've established a safe word. You've talked through like your consent practices, your desires, etc. Things can still go wrong, right? Feelings can come up that you didn't expect. You can have a difficult time. Things can be misinterpreted, and whenever I've run into a situation like that, I check in with the people involved. So if I notice someone being a bit, I don't know, being a bit more quiet than they were before, then I'd be like, "Hey, are you okay? Would you like to like take a bit of a pause? Do you need some? Does everyone need some water?" Right? Like, and it doesn't need to be like a whole thing. But yeah, like I think frequently checking in with people, particularly in a group situation, is really important because when you're focusing on multiple people, it's very easy to get distracted, and it's quite an intense experience that like some people feel really pressured to like break the mood. But I wouldn't worry so much about like maintaining the vibe, particularly if you're not feeling great. It's okay to kind of flag it up if you're feeling uncomfortable, or if you're experiencing difficult feelings, and being like, hey, I'm feeling XYZ. I need, I don't know, some reassurance, or I would love a little bit more focus on me. I feel a little bit left out, or I'm really overheating, and actually I need to have a drink of water. Can you guys continue while I do that? So yeah, like it's okay to stop, take a break, assess the situation, because like if you feel pressured to continue the experience for everyone else, even if you're not having a good time, then like are you serving the is the experience serving the people involved, or are you serving the experience? Do you know what I mean? So it's important that everyone is on the same page and on board and feeling good about and engaged, with what's happening. So yeah, like be aware of yourself, be aware of your playmates, check in frequently, take breaks if you need to, right? There's no pressure, there's no kind of shoulds around like what you need to be doing or anything like that. Just do what feels good, and do what feels good to the other people involved. So yeah, like I think like obviously it's easier said than done. The pressure to perform around sexuality, I think, is really kind of heavily embedded in our culture in general, and kind of how sex is portrayed on screen and stuff like that, really kind of might not help with that. But yeah, like in real life, it's okay to stop, it's okay to check in, it's okay for things to ebb and flow, and just do what feels comfortable and speak up if you're not comfortable. um the right people will make sure that you feel safe and comfortable and pleasured, right? And don't feel the need to kind of carry on with things because you don't want to ruin the vibe for everyone else, because like it would be really awful if at the end of the experience they're like, wow, we had a great time, and you're like, oh, actually that wasn't so good for me. Like other people might feel really blindsided by that, and they might feel like, oh no, I wish I could have you could have said that so I would have been able to take care of you during that time, or done XYZ so you felt more included, right? So yeah, weird and difficult things can crop up in group play, as with any situation, and it's okay to speak up about it. Hope that helps, Aaron. Um, do, 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 do. Hmm. Okay. Kiara Conroy asks, "What do you recommend as a first date when group play could potentially be on the table?" So I think this really depends. Like, I mean, for me, because I want to just kind of get to know the people involved, I'm very simple. Like on a first date, I always just go for a drink or a coffee and just have a chat. Like, doesn't need to be doing anything in particular. Some people like to like actually go out and do an activity. And in that case, I think something like dancing might be fun. Going out dancing, whether it's at a club or like, at a salsa night or dance class or whatever it is. Because, dancing in a way is very similar to sex. You still have to be like aware of each other's cues. You need to like check in with each other, like you move like together, right? Like, so, getting a sense of each other's bodies in that way and developing awareness in that way might be fun. Not my first choice for first date, but I know other people might be really into that. I think salsa and tango are really popular choices. So um, yeah, I don't know what else. I mean, I wouldn't recommend something like going to the cinema where you're not going to be talking to each other for that long. Although it might be nice to go see a movie and then discuss it afterwards, right? So yeah, it depends how much time you have. So yeah, but like I think as long as it's a space where you are getting to know each other, on a personal level, and you're not kind of being distracted doing other things, then I think you can do whatever you want as a first date, really, like, whatever kind of calls to you. I think rock climbing is another popular one, because yeah, like rock climbing is very easy to just do like together without necessarily being too competitive about it. And yeah, like it's and you can take breaks from it. You can just like chill and watch other people do it. Like it's very flexible in that way. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas out there. But yeah, I mean, in my experience, for me, like whenever I've kind of gone on first dates where group play might potentially be on the table, it's honestly just been go out for a drink or a coffee, have a chat about your desires. If you get along and find each other attractive, then, we'll go back to someone's place and see where it goes. Like that's been the formula for me. I think maybe the only other thing to consider is like finding a place where if you're in a group of like, three or four, like, finding spaces where the tables are either like square or round so that everyone's kind of like equidistant from each other. So then everyone can kind of hear each other and, because I think with like rectangular tables, sometimes like it might feel like an interview if it's like two people on one end and one person on the other end, and they might like the new person might feel intimidated, things like that. Like, but that's like very kind of minute details. Like, I wouldn't worry too much about that. So yeah, you can do whatever you want as long as you're getting to know each other and you have a space to have conversations about your desires. Like, it honestly doesn't matter what you do as a first date, if you're wanting to do group play. Okay, let's see. Hmm. Okay. Um, I think I can take probably two more questions before the end of this live stream, as it's 7:02. So I'm going to take yeah, Bradley Clark's question, which is, how do you go about organizing a party when everyone doesn't know each other? Okay, so um so I'm assuming kind of this is a situation where, say, you've matched with a number of people and you want to bring them together. So like for me, like how when I kind of organize a party, I prefer for most like for most, if not all of the people, to know at least two people at the party. So me and someone else. Doesn't necessarily have to be the same people, but then I think it usually helps so that like yeah, people don't feel awkward and no one feels left out. And so yeah, like if you have the energy and the wherewithal to like organize that kind of thing, like I really encourage you to yeah, try and kind of connect people in smaller groups before you bring like a larger group together. Because yeah, like you might bring like a bunch of strangers together and like no one vibes with each other, or yeah, one person doesn't vibe with the rest of them, or things like that. So like I think making sure that like everyone knows at least two people will really help with just kind of just socially lubricating the whole space. And yeah, and it also takes the pressure off yourself, right? Because if the only person that everyone at the party knows is you, then how are you going to be able to like take care of everyone when everyone's looking to you to help with kind of guidance on socializing with other people, like it's I think it's complicated, like, and it takes like a certain type of person to be able to do that, is all I'm saying. But for me, I prefer if yeah, like people know other people other than myself, because it takes the pressure off me, both in social situations and in sexual situations. So yeah, but like I think kind of start small, like start with kind of small groups of like 3 or 4, and then from there, yeah, expand into larger groups like once you get more confident with it. And yeah, like, I've already kind of given some general tips like prior to this question about like organizing parties more generally. Think about the snacks that you're doing, think about what activities you might have, some sex games, for instance, like things like truth or dare is really fun, spin the bottle, the classics. Or you might even like buy like a sexy board game. There are loads of sexy board games that you can find online, or like conversation cards and things like that that will get the party started. So yeah, like if you're worried about like the vibe being too like just friendly, rather than sexual, then yeah, bring in a couple of sexy games, like get people talking about their desires and being open about what they're looking for, so people can see each other in a different light and things can get sexy and go from there. So yeah, that's generally what I would recommend. Like generally I try and allocate about like 1 to 2 hours of like socializing and sexy games, and then there's going to be a point where yeah, people start moving to the bedroom and or wherever. It doesn't have to be a bedroom. And I think as well, like having kind of different spaces for specific activities is really important. So rather than just having one space where it's like for 2 hours of socializing and then it's a group play space, having like a space for socializing, a place for sex, and a place for just relaxing and chilling out and decompressing, I think is probably going to be the most like inclusive and accommodating to everyone at the party. Because sometimes, yeah, like you don't want to have sex and you don't want to be like overwhelmed in a big kind of social gathering. You just want to, chill out, relax, breathe. And yeah, like having a chill space is really good for that. And so yeah, like kind of having 3 separate spaces and having those containers and kind of, letting people yeah, consent to like what they're walking into when they walk into a room, yeah, will kind of really help the atmosphere in my experience. Hope that helps. Okay, with 2.5 minutes to go, I'm going to pick one more question. Yeah, so this is related to the last question, but I'll answer it anyway. William Hans Kennedy asks, how do you cultivate good pre-play negotiations and having open discussion prior to a play party? So it doesn't have to happen prior to the play party. It could happen at the play party. But if you are kind of, if you're like organizing one, for instance, getting to know the people that you're going to the thing with beforehand, maybe having a group chat and just being like, hey, like let's establish some rules for the space, like it's important for people to be like consenting and engaged, like be careful of like how much you're drinking or whatever, the universal safe word is this, like how do people feel about like this play or that kind of play. There are some parties, for instance, that like don't ban like certain types of more like taboo play, like consensual non-consent, anything involving knives, stuff like that. Yeah, like I think that like those kind of negotiations can happen beforehand, but also if you're in the space while you're socializing, you can bring that up as well. Like, hey, what are you looking for tonight? Oh, I'm looking to do this thing. Hey, like, what are your desires? Oh, like, I'm really into this thing. Oh, well, what's off limits for you? Oh, yeah, me too. Like these things can come up in conversation and then kind of lead to something sexy, right? Like, because it's nice to like just talk about these things more generally. So yeah, you have these pre-play negotiations. It's and like I said earlier in this live stream, like um, because people go to these kind of group play situations to have group play, like people are much more likely to be open and honest about what they're looking for, and there's kind of fewer games being played, which is also what I really like. It's nice to be direct and honest. So you might, once you're in the space, you might find it much easier to express yourself and not be so embarrassed voicing your desires than you would like at a regular party. So I think it's just a different atmosphere, and in that sense, like sometimes because people are being so open with each other, it can feel very strangely wholesome. Yeah, I hope that helps, William. Um, Okay, so yeah, I think that's it for today. Like I said, I will be joining the group chat immediately after this. So if you haven't done so yet, please join the group chat that's specifically for this live stream on the Field app, and I will be there answering more questions for the next hour. But yeah, in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this live stream. And again, I will be appearing again on the 7th of September to talk about poly dating for singles. And yeah, I'll see you there. Thank you so much.